Welcome to Global Citizen Life podcast. Today on the show, we have Global Amal. Thank you very much, Amal, for joining us today.
Hi, Sally. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
So, you have lived in various countries yourself, and you also help people with business if they want to move abroad and run operations and dealing with some of those benefits and challenges of life, especially for those of us who maybe move often or split time, as a lot of people do, where they're coming from North America. We have a lot of people that are snowbirds, so they could be in North America in the summertime when it's beautiful and nice. But if they're like me and they hate winter, then leave for the winter, but still have to run their business and work and do things.
Yeah, 100%. So from a very young age, freedom has always been a very important value for me. I come from a multicultural family. I'm the daughter of immigrants. So I'm the daughter of Moroccan immigrants in France. And so from a very young age, I was very motivated and inspired to travel around the world myself, but also to craft a life that looks like me and a life that is aligned with the places where I want to be and being able to divine time between different places, different continents, depending also on the weather, as you mentioned, just like you. I do not like the winter, even though I did spend a few winters in Chicago, Illinois. So with that, I've had the opportunity to live in France, to live in the UK, to live in Mexico, to live in the United States, and currently since spring of 2024, so since last year, I've been really nomadic. So my home base is still Chicago, Illinois. I believe that Chicago is the best US city. Don't come for me because there are rankings, there are official tourist rankings about that. And from there, I decided, yeah, to continue my travels around the world and be on the quest of my next home base. So I haven't made my decision yet, but I'm still discovering new places and see where I'll land next.
Well, that is very similar to me in the sense of not knowing where the next home base is. Now, I'll let the Chicago go. I'm sure there's going to be some listeners that will disagree with you, but I have been to Chicago. I think it's great, but again, as a non-winter lover, like I don't like winter, now would not be a good time of the year to be there. But it is about finding, and I think that's one of the biggest things when I'm talking with people who are wanting to relocate. A lot first they say, well, I would like to move abroad, but, and then there's those worries and concerns, but my family lives here, my friends are here, but my job, depending upon the type of work they do, and of course finances is the affordability. But even before kind of getting into that, I always like to say, like, why do you want to move? What are you looking for? What is the change that you desire, or what is it that you think the move is going to bring you?
Exactly. That's a great point. And with that, it stems, for me, I believe that it stems from an alignment with your values. So the community, the land, the country, the culture where you are embedded has to have some sort or a majority of alignment with your own values. And when we have this want, this desire to move, to go abroad, and sometimes people have this difficulty to explain where that desire comes from, but it really comes deep into that lack of alignment or that discrepancy of alignment with who they are as individuals and the environment that they need to really grow and thrive. And that's something I felt really young growing up in France. Even though I was born and I was raised in France, it's not my culture. It's not, there are a lot of values, unfortunately, in the French culture that are not my values. And as much as I try to assimilate, it never felt like home. Obviously, I was also raised in a different culture, a very rich and ancient culture in North Africa that I'm very proud of. But very quickly, with my own personality and my ambitions, I realized that France was not going to be the land where I could thrive as an adult. And that's why I decided myself to migrate to the United States, as much as the US has its own issues, and we see that, it's more aligned with my values when it comes to how I want to grow as an individual. And that's how I was motivated, and that's how I was able to put the steps one after the other to be able to relocate and develop an adult life in the US. I hope that answers your question if you.
Uh, yeah, no, it's good, and I like how you said um how it aligns best with you, and that it is not, you didn't use the word perfect, I'm going to use the word perfect, that it's not perfect. Because I think a lot of times, and I've been guilty of it myself. I think, oh, if I move abroad, like, we kind of glamorize it.
Yeah.
We fantasize a little bit about what the destination's going to be like, and how it's going to be, in some ways, it's going to be less stressful, and we're going to enjoy life a lot more. But the reality is first, there is no perfect place. Every place has benefits and challenges to it. And those benefits and challenges are different per person. Like, what you see potentially as a benefit or a challenge in the United States, I may not perceive that as a benefit or a challenge, right? Because we're all individual, and we need to remember that, when even with people listening right now, and things, it's what resonates best with us. Because my experience living in all the countries I've lived in, you could go to those exact same countries, live the exact same amount of time in the same city, even the same neighborhood, and have a different experience, because we're all different people.
100%. I completely agree, and it resonates 100% with my experience. And this is why you have to choose your battles. You have to choose your battles, and you have one of the definitions of freedom that I love is that freedom is when you choose your own constraints. So this is exactly this case when you decide to move abroad and you are choosing your own constraints instead of living through a specific life that has been assigned to you where you were born, for example. Then you take more agency of that life and you decide to stay because this is your choice, or you decide to leave and you go find different constraints for your own freedom. And so that's a very important concept for me, and it's very powerful. And we talked a little bit about it as well before the show. But as of now as well, I'm looking to find my next constraints because the Chicago and the US are not the constraints that I want for this next stage of my life. And so I'm on the quest for new constraints.
And I mean, I agree with that too, because I'm in the same situation where including Canada, I've lived in 5 countries now. They've all have, kind of those benefits and challenges, and I've enjoyed everyone, but I'm always kind of on the lookout again for something new and challenges. And there's a few places that I haven't been to yet, but they're on the top of my list of potentials. And of course, I need to go there. I need to visit them. I need to see, can I live here? Does this place resonate with me? And it's a number of things to look at. We've mentioned weather, obviously, a few times, and that's something that is important to me. Some people, maybe it's not so important, but for me, it is. And then, what is the culture like? What is day-to-day life like? What type of political things, parties, beliefs are going on? Not that I'm going to be in a position where I vote or anything, but I have to be okay with how things are done there. what type of religious background goes on there, or how many different types of religion, or that, because again, those things play a role in the culture, in the society, and I need to be okay with those things if I'm going to be moving there and living there.
100%. And that's a great point you are making for all the listeners that have this question and have this intention to move. And then there is this but, this but all the constraints or but all the obstacles, to really take the time to process and analyze the values, analyze, as you mentioned, the different socioeconomic factors of this new environment. And from there, I would say make a test travel. And the test travel should be a travel geared towards routine life and not tourism. Because there are places that we love to visit. There are places where I've been and I love these places. I can say, for example, Cuba. I absolutely love Cuba. My heart is so connected to Cuba, the culture, the music, the people, the values. But that's not a place where I can thrive as a human being. That's not a place where I can live. So it's also about what are the, and I know this is also an extreme example to really draw my point, but really when people are looking to make these test travels, to have the intentionality behind it, to really look at the routine. How can my routine look like in this new environment, this new city, this new landscape? What are my go-to places? How can my community look like as well? The new people that will be surrounded me in this community, whether I work remotely or I work directly within the community where I'll be moving in. As you mentioned, the values, the religious backgrounds, the safety. As women, a big aspect on my end personally that I've made the decision to find a different home base now is regarding safety. I do not necessarily feel safe as a woman in the United States and as a woman of color. So I'm looking at other places where when I want to have a family, raise a family, and have my children, I can raise them in a very safe environment where I do not need to check behind my shoulder every time I step outside.
Those definitely are a lot of great points. I mean, safety and looking into the future, right? Like I say sometimes that everybody goes through stages of life, or chapters of life is generally what I call it. And people are at different chapters at different times. And as things within our life change, so what we want and desire changes. So for you, as you're saying right now, like as a single woman, safety concerns are a big thing. No matter where you live, we want to live somewhere where we feel safe. And then when you're in the chapter of having kids, you want to make sure that, however you want to raise your kids and where they're at, like we want to be in a place where it's safe. And that could vary. Like some people like the cities and they want kids being raised in the cities because they love the cities. Other people want to be more rural areas because they want kids to just be more free and run around in the farm, on the field, or whatever it may be. And those are always things to think about. And I think a big thing too is that I hear a lot of people say, I want to move because I want a slower pace of life. And I get that. But we don't realize, for some of us, how hard it is to adjust to a place with a slower pace of life, because we go somewhere and we're on holiday. And as we know, it's great. We can be on holiday and we barely have no place to be. So time doesn't really matter. And we love that slow pace of life. But what happens is when you move to a place and everything is closed in the afternoon for 3 hours, at first you think, oh, it's okay. But then you realize, no, it's a bit of a pain, and it took me adjusting when I first moved to Spain, because I like to get up early in the morning and work for several hours, and then I like to have my afternoons where if I need to go grocery shopping, go to the gym, go jogging, pick up whatever, do errands in the afternoon, and then work a little bit more in the evening time. Well, I couldn't do that in Spain because, well, not the shopping part, because everything closed in the afternoon. And I can't tell you how many times. I think I'm a little bit of a slow learner sometimes. I would go and I would, want to go to a shop because I get my coffee from an Italian store because everything's very there are big grocery stores and things like that, but it's nice to go to those little shops and stores and things. I can't tell you how many times I went and it was closed because I was there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and most things are closed at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And so, in theory, we think, oh, it's so nice for things to be closed. And yes, but we have to adjust. So there were times I was frustrated and at myself because I knew this is the way it was. I've known it was the way it was. And it was my own frustration at myself of being like, oh, Sally, you got to learn. Like you got to change your schedule and routine to suit the routine. And it took a while and I did it. And even though, I'm sure some people listening thinking like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. You're right, but you have to be able to switch that routine, right?
Mhm.
Or the shops are everything's closed on Sundays. So in Montenegro, everything is closed on Sundays. Yeah, restaurants are open, but if there's not even like convenience stores. There's I heard now that there's one just now, but I've been here a few years. Um, and so we really have to be, is this the lifestyle that I want? And if it is getting back to, the politics or the religion and things like that, like, are you okay with that? Because when we're on holiday, everything is great. We're on holiday. We don't have to be anywhere. We don't have to do anything. We can just relax. But when we actually live, it's completely different than being on holiday.
That's such a great point. And this touches upon adaptability skills and flexibility. And it's a great way to grow as a traveler and as an international citizen as well. I have countless examples of those anecdotes, just like you. For example, right now I'm currently in France. I was born in France, raised in France until I was 18. And however, I'm still shocked that on Sunday I cannot do my shopping. In the US, in Chicago, my routine would be to run my errands on Sunday and go to Target, go to the outlets and get everything I need on Sundays. Here, impossible. Everything is closed. Everything.
Yeah.
So you see,
Yeah,
we adapt to our new environment, but then we need to do the reverse adaptation and it's complicated. And another anecdote I can provide as well is right now, as a woman who is looking for more safety and looking to have a family, I'm looking more at the countries where I have my actual original Muslim and Arabic culture. And what's interesting is that I spent so many years in the West, the Western world, and I am very Americanized. And as an American woman, the way things run in Morocco or in the UAE or in Egypt, for example, is not like in the US. So even though I am myself Moroccan and an Arab woman, my behaviors can be westernized, and so I will go through a process of adaptation in my own culture where my agency and the way I move around as a woman might be different from the US to Morocco or the US to the UAE. So I'm really glad you are highlighting this aspect because I see it as an opportunity for growth and also to develop different facets of ourselves. I'm sure you experienced that as well. The Sally in Canada has different qualities that are coming out and shining, but the Sally in Montenegro has other qualities that are coming out. So I really see it as always an opportunity to shine on a different aspect of who we are. And that's why I always encourage people when they have this hunch to go, it's also about their own development as an individual and how they are connected to the world. And we never know what part of ourselves will come out in a new environment as well.
absolutely. I mean, there's people, that we learn things about ourselves. We try new things because we're so in our routine when we're in our home countries or a country that we've lived in for even 10 years. We're in that routine where we're not, in a lot of senses, we're not really consciously living. It's kind of unconscious where we do the same things kind of all the time. You get up at the same time in the morning, you have your same morning routine, whatever that involves. If it's just you or you and your spouse or getting your kids to school, then you go to work, you see the same people, you drive the same way to work, you drive the same way home, and then maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if you have kids, you got to bring them to soccer practice and whatever those variants are for people, but it's pretty much the same. Then you get home, you eat, you watch some TV or something, you go to bed, and you do basically the same thing all over again. And there's not a lot of change or development that's going on to kind of broaden our horizons. Or it's rare that somebody says, "Hey, let's do." Just something completely different. Let's take a cooking class. Let's sign a 6-week cooking class, or let's, take a course on history or like whatever it may be, just something completely different than that you would do. But once you move to a different country, there is first all the adjusting of that, but then you're also meeting new people. So I find then you're even more open to, I know people that don't go to museums. They're just not interested in art and museums and stuff like that, which when I was younger, I didn't either. But once I started traveling, and I was like, oh, yeah, at first it was like, oh, it's a rainy day. Sure, I'll go to the museum because, I need to be out of the rain and do something. But just that, even those little bits a few times got me more
Yeah.
interested. So when I do travel more, I do want to go to the museums. I do want to know more about the history of the place. And I find too, just being in a place and standing in a square, speaking of Europe, because we have so many squares, and in a square, sure, I could, read a book on it or watch a YouTube video, but there's nothing that's the same as actually standing there and then thinking, wow, in this square that's 2,000 years old, like all the good, bad, and everything in between that's happened in that area. It's just fascinating, and I think it just opens our perspective to things. And one thing that I've really learned through living in places, not really so much of travel, because when you live, you get to know people, you get
Yeah.
to know the cultures and things like that, is now I often say to people, like my thoughts and beliefs are not right, but they're not wrong. They're
Mm,
just mine because of my experience that I lived. And if I was taken from my family as a 2-year-old and moved to China, my thoughts and beliefs would be different. If I was in the UAE, my thoughts and beliefs would be different. If I was in, like whatever, again, it would be different. And they're not, it really is. Our thoughts and beliefs, I think for anybody aren't right and wrong, but their experience, and I love having conversations with people when I say, "Well, why do you think or believe that?" Whether it's politics or religion or things. And I have to be careful because a lot of people can't have conversations
that's
because they're
true.
like, "Because it's true." It's like, well, no, but like, why? And I love having conversations when people can say, well, I believe this or I think this because, and they can say, and it's never to change a mind, but I'm always fascinated. And I remember one time I was having it was such a great conversation. The next day, the guy was like, "Oh, I saw you arguing with that guy." I was like, "We weren't arguing. Like we were both intense with our
Amazing.
beliefs."
Yes.
And I mean, it was great. After we're done, I said, "You know what? We need to agree to disagree." I said, "Because if I had your life, if I went through what you went through and those things happened to me, I absolutely would believe exactly what you're saying. However, my experience was completely different. So I can understand you having those beliefs, but I can't change mine because my experience was different, and I don't expect to change yours because that was your experience. So we're both right."
Yeah. Yes. Yes. This is so interesting and fascinating because it's about, that human connection, that raw human connection when you are traveling and you're actually living in the community. And it's also an exercise to reinforce your own belief because through the questions that people in your new community are asking you, you can also visualize your own values and beliefs via a different perspective. And this is where you can truly see, okay, this is truly part of my identity. I can truly become the ambassador of this value, of this belief, of this religion, of this way of thinking. and convey it the best way possible. And here, I want to highlight that as international citizens, I think we have a big responsibility as travelers and as people who relocate and love to live in different places around the world. We have this responsibility that to become the ambassadors of our values, to become, and I really want to emphasize on values rather than countries or cities, because
Mm.
we can, I can be from Chicago, you can be from Calgary, Canada, but people from Chicago can have different values than I do. And so we will showcase, or other people in Calgary, Canada will have different values as well. So they will showcase a different perspective of the city, of the state, of the country. So it's important to really come as an ambassador of your own values, and you can attach them. You can attach them to your culture, to your country, to your political party, to your religion, but really focusing on those statements and those values and being able to represent them the best way that you can.
I agree, and I also think with doing it, it makes us I don't wanna say yeah, it makes us question our values, and
Yes.
not necessarily in a bad way, but it is, "Why do I think such and such statement or thing? Why do I believe?" And it comes back and I've heard this story in different variations. But basically, it's a lady is at home and she's cooking a ham, and she cuts the ends off the ham, puts it in the pot, puts it in the oven, and her husband says, Why did you cut the ends off?" And she said, "Well, because that's how you cook it." And he said, "No, I don't think so." She said, "No, yeah, that's how it's how we cook it. I'll even call my mom." And called mom, and mom said, "Yeah, you cut the ends off, put it in." And she said, "Because that's how you cook the ham." She said, "That's how my mom's done it." And so ends up phoning her mom, so the grandma in the situation, and said, "Well, when you cook the ham, why did you cut the ends off for cooking it?" And she said, "So it would fit in the pot." Right? And so it was. So, like, because the pot back then, I guess, was
Yep.
smaller, the ham was so that she had to cut the ends off and cooked it, and so she just saw and never questioned it. It's just like, "Oh, that's how it's done. That's how it's done." And that's how a lot of things get passed on from generation to generation without questioning. And so, as pots were made bigger, stoves are bigger, plates are bigger, like everything is bigger now than what
Yeah,
they were 60, 70 years ago. But if we just question and it's kind of a joke and it's kind of funny, but at the same point, it's the same as, well, why do we believe things? Why do we think certain things? And and I don't say that we should question everything that we think or believe, but maybe we should to just do some research as to why, and then we can then say, "Oh, well, it is because of this. This is why I believe it." Or it could then kind of question of, "Oh, well, maybe it's not," because things change and how we define things or as we learn new things. I mean, especially like when I went to school, I'm probably aging myself here, but that's okay. When I went to school, Pluto was a planet. And we just knew, like, Pluto was a planet, and that was it, and now Pluto is no longer a planet. It's something else and like, things within the universe, and it is because we only have a certain bit of knowledge, and we still should question those things because we have new knowledge. Things change, or we rediscover new things, or even what I could have believed as somebody who was 20, and I could have been, "I believe this is strong," but as I change as a person, and if I question, do I really value that? Is that really important? And that could be because things have changed in the world itself, and so we know that things are different, or even just myself as a person. And I think once with moving abroad and living abroad and realizing how so many lives are so different and thoughts and beliefs because experience is different, that maybe it comes back to then my beliefs are not right, but they're not wrong. They just are from my experience.
totally. They are for your experience, they are for my experience. And we have with that evolution, as we are changing, as we are growing as individuals, because the world is our playground, this also gives us a particular opportunity to redefine what we consider right or wrong. Because when we talked about questioning our values, we talked about asserting our values and representing them. But when we are traveling and living in different places, this is where we can also see, okay, I like what they are doing. I like this tradition. I like this value. I can make this tradition mine. I can maybe insert that into my family traditions, and then 2, 3 generations from now on, we won't know where that came from, but it actually came from the small island that I visited back in the archipelago of Indonesia. Like that's the beauty of it. And that's something that a lot of people seem to forget, is that migrations are not new. We globalization is a newer phenomena, but migrations and different people from different places meeting for trade, for also for war, for different interactions, positive or negative, these are not new, and this has always sparked then the evolution of cultures, of values, of languages as well, to this point.
Mhm.
And so I think it's so exciting for us as individuals to be part of this phenomenon and to truly have a sort of like superpower. We have this power where we can, evolve and speed up these processes at our scale, but still at a very special scale.
Absolutely, and it gives us the opportunity to kind of like pick and choose
Yeah.
things from a variety of cultures or places that we've been, that we can celebrate, or we can, whether it's a holiday that a culture celebrates, that we can recognize it, or if it's a traditional dish and you have it and it's amazing and
Yeah.
you learn how to cook it, and you cook it on whatever your special occasion, celebration, birthday, religious day, whatever it may be, or that day, going, "Oh, well, I know that they celebrate this and this is what they make. I don't really celebrate, like, in my country, we don't, but on this day, I'm gonna make this dish because I remember that from living in this place," and vice versa. Coming from, with you for certain things that are made in France,
Mhm.
other things made in the United States, or Moroccan dishes or things like that, that we can say when we're in a place, "Oh, well, on we celebrate this day, and on this day we make these things, but this is my favorite thing, my special thing." And we share that in our travels and living other places, and other people that we meet, if they love that and want it, they can then also incorporate those things into their lives and celebrations as well.
Yes, that's my favorite part. When it comes to food and setting up food traditions, that is my favorite part. I love that. And again, like this is truly a superpower we have. We have so much agency with that. And so to really tie it back to, the questions we tackled originally at the beginning of our conversation, um, people who want to go and experience life abroad, they don't even know what's waiting for them on the other side. It's like any opportunity. I can relate to that with business, being in entrepreneurship and running my own business. When you start, you have no idea what's on the other side for you, because it compounds, right? You see the first couple of
Mhm.
few steps in front of you, but you don't know the scale that's waiting for you. And it's the same enrichment when it is about living a life abroad, because it's compounding, and also it's very surprising. You don't know how much you will learn, you will grow, you will share, you will take from others. And if it's something that's in people's heart, and I mean, now is the time. There is no better time than now, honestly.
Well, yeah, no, I agree on that on so many levels, because I mean, right now, the ways that we can move abroad, there it obviously it varies by country, with different types of visas and citizenships and residencies and all of those types of things. And anybody who's kind of been following it because maybe they're on the fence, they've known over the last couple of years there's been several countries that have made changes to visa policies, whether we talk about golden visas and different things like that,
Mhm.
that there's always changes. And it just seems if we compare things from even just 3 years ago, 2 years ago, things for the ability to move abroad is getting a little bit harder or more expensive. So because there's so much migration that countries, and it makes sense, they're saying, well, if you want to move here, then you need to either have specific jobs because we need people in these jobs, makes sense, or you need to be making X amount of dollars, whatever their local currency is. Again, which makes sense because they want to be bringing people in who contribute to the economy, right? Or you start a business again with maybe X amount of money or X amount of employees or whatever, and all of these things vary drastically from country to country. Um, but they are looking at wanting more from people to come and move to the country where, like, prime example would been the Caribbean islands and stuff. It used to be you can get citizenship for about $100,000. Well, it was last year, 2023, 2024, right around there. It was changed to $200,000. And so
Interesting.
that's a big difference. Now, a lot of countries say, we have a digital nomad visa, which is great. Some of those digital nomad visas, though, you have to make a substantial amount
Yeah.
of money to have them, and some of them, they're good for 1, 2, 3 years, and then that's it. Then you
Yeah.
have to leave. So like, if you just want to go for a couple of years, great, you could look into those. But if it's something that somebody's wanting to move long term, like they need to really look at the details of the visas, of the residency programs, what are the requirements, what do I need for renewal, and all of those types of things. So in a way, it can be a bit more challenging. I mean, it makes sense from a country's perspective. I understand countries wanting, higher income levels, certain jobs and things like that. It makes sense. And those are the things we need to look up. So then we think of, okay, what am I doing as my business? What is my job? Can I work remotely and still work for the company if it is a job that I have with a company? Can I do a little something on the side to increase my wages and stuff? Or do I get on a plan and I've given myself 1 year or 2 years that I'm going to start my own online business and get it to X amount, whatever I need it to be to get these residencies and do a lot more of the online stuff. Um, and then, of course, we could get into all I'll call it help with AI because
Yeah.
AI is useful in many ways. I do believe it will take away some jobs. It will make some jobs obsolete, but it also creates a lot more jobs. Just as the tractor took away jobs but created jobs when the tractor was designed way back in farming, and then manufacturing, how sure the manufacture plants took away a number of jobs with automation but also then created more jobs as well. And I think we're seeing that with AI as well, that it will take away some jobs. It will make some people more productive and it creates more jobs at the same time as well.
100% for being in this field at the forefront with traditional SMB, small and medium business owners that are looking to implement, easy AI solutions within their companies, but also looking at the future, looking at where we are heading for the next couple of years, because the acceleration is already happening and it will happen really fast. I think, as you mentioned, it's truly about a new industrial revolution, and looking at it from the perspective of being a global citizen and still focusing on that question of moving abroad. We have to see and look at AI as a new power to help us through this mission. Maybe the AI will provide us more recommendations and accelerate the logistics, the process. Maybe AI will be our companion to upskill us and give us these new skills that we need to be able to enter the new society where we're looking to move. You know, maybe AI will give us the predictions of that country, that city where we are looking to resettle in. So I hope that people here can be creative and really look at AI as their superpower. Like I like to see it as a flame, you know, the like I'm a superheroine and I have this little flame here, my little robots, and they can make anything out of it. And so if their goal is to test a new life and experience a new life abroad, yeah, amazing. Train your chat GPT to become your global companion throughout this new adventure. And you will see if it's about upskilling, about logistics, about meeting new people in your new place, about learning the language. You can also, we didn't talk about this aspect, but also accelerate your language skills with AI to prepare you for your new community and your new environment. So I'm very excited for this intersection of global lifestyles and AI, and how AI can be a support and an accelerator for these ventures as well.
Absolutely. It's a great tool to use, and as I see it, as a tool. And so I think if people are a little unsure where to move, and I've done it myself, just kind of playing with AI to see what comes up, because obviously it does make mistakes and it's not 100% accurate for a number of things. But I was going through one day, and it was a while ago, and I just said, okay, I'm going to ask and see what it comes up with. And I gave a whole bunch of things that I was looking for. So I said, I'm thinking about moving. These are the things that are important to me. And I went through and listed, and I recommend to people too to make initially on a piece of paper, write down your wish list, like everything that you want. Um, and because we have a really long list of things that, if we could have the perfect place in the world, which unfortunately it does not exist, we would have all of those things. And then from there, kind of break down to what we really want, and then the non-negotiables. Like me, a non-negotiable is winter minus any temperature. I Below zero, I'm not interested. I'll go for a bit, and if I on a holiday or something, that's fine. But have those, and then put that into whatever chat GPT, whatever AI one, Claude, like there's a number of them. And you can say, I'm thinking about moving abroad. These are the things that are most important to me. These are my non-negotiables. These are the things that I would really like to have. They're important. And then these other things, great if I do, but I could live without them. And include all, obviously, do you want city, town, rural, like those physical type things as well as a preference, and see what it says.
Yeah.
You'll probably be surprised, and then from there, you can think, "Okay, well, the easiest thing is, oh, I don't wanna go there." So just cross those ones out, because that's really simply the, "Oh, I don't know," and then the others to think about, and then start doing more research, and you could even use the chat to do that, about politics, religion, safety, crime, weather, all of those other things that you want to know. And then again, a process of elimination. And once you get it down to either a couple countries, or you've maybe within a country, a few different regions, because things can vary within regions of a country, to then go do that scouting trip, go check it out, spend as much time as you can um, there, whether it's, as I know that sometimes time is limited and you're only allowed 30 days, then go for 30 days. If you can go for 90 days, and you can do it, and you don't have to have a visa, or your visa's for 90 days, as a tourist, go for that, whatever that time allows. And then I always tell people, when you do go during what you would consider the worst season. So for me, the
Mm.
worst season is winter season anywhere. Or if they don't have winter, is it rainy season? Or for some who don't really like, is it summertime when it's hot? Like, go during that season that you really don't like, because if you don't mind it and you can handle it and you think this isn't so bad and it's a season you don't like, chances are you'll love it even more in season that you do like.
That is such a great point. It reminds me of the analogy that we use in real estate, you know, when you are a home buyer and the real estate agent always recommends you, okay, you can now come around the neighborhood at different times. You come in the morning, you come in the evening, you just understand the feel of the environment at different timelines. And that's exactly that when you are looking for a new home, a new land, a new country, and it's best to first experience it in its worst state for you. And again, it's not to put a scale, it's the worst state for you. So then you know that if you can handle and you are happy in its worst shape for you, you'll be ecstatic in its best version.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Amal, before we wrap up, I just want you to tell our listeners a little bit about what you do specifically. And for those that want to connect with you, what would be the best ways for them to get in touch with you?
Thank you, Sally. This has been such a pleasure. I really enjoyed our conversation. So I'm currently running and growing an AI agency. I have a business partner who is in this adventure with me. So our mission is to help small and medium business owners to truly simplify their processes, their operations, and get to the next level thanks to simple tech and AI solutions. So we do a lot of education, we do a lot of implementation, we do a lot of training. Our agency is named AI Next Level. So you can find us at AI Next Level Agency. I am one of the co-founders and I am all around the world. So if you also need some help when it comes to your international relocation or travel recommendations, you can find me at Global Amal on social media.
Perfect. And we will make sure that we have the links to those in the show notes to make it even easier for everybody to get in touch with you. And I just again want to thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your time, Sally, and for a great conversation.